So, you'd like to give a keynote speech. Maybe you've got an opportunity to represent your business and you're going to have the main stage, so to speak. Well, I've got 3 tips, do's and don'ts of what to do when you have your next keynote speaking opportunity. So these 3 tips come after I attended a conference where I saw 3 keynote speakers speak for about 60 minutes each. So that means 3 speakers with 3 different levels of experience, all having very rich life experience, might I add. And, I have some feedback. I couldn't help but note some observations as they were talking from the main stage. So one of my observations was to be less directive. So instead of saying, okay, now I want you to do this. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. Now, this might sound a little nitpicky, and maybe it is, but the opportunity for you to speak and build your authority and win them over, to build that likability factor with your audience is so precious. It's important to choose your words carefully. So instead of being directive, be inviting. So ask them to invite to do something or think a certain way. I'd like to invite you to think this, or I would ask that you consider this. Those are power words. And just that little tweak can help build the likability factor that's what you're trying to build from the stage anyway, right? So choose your words carefully. Do not be directive. Instead, be inviting. So all 3 of these speakers, there's no doubt about it. They had authority, they had credibility, they knew what they were talking about. Plus, they were talking from their life experience, which always helps to create that smooth flow in your talk. But what you don't want to do is don't make it hard to follow. And some of those keynote speakers, I don't care if they were being paid thousands upon thousands of dollars, which they might have been, they just, made me a little bored. I was a little bit, yawning when some of them were speaking because it was going on and on and on, and I was struggling to follow them. I was struggling to find their path and think, where are they going? So they didn't have any verbal cues. They didn't have any signifiers that allowed me as the audience member to say, oh, here's where we are. Here's the marker. Here's what's going, probably coming next. You get that intuition, that feeling based on the words that are being shared. So don't make it hard to follow. Instead, edit yourself. So that can be very hard. And in writing, if you've ever been a writer or you've done any kind of studying with writing, there's a famous phrase called kill your darlings. That means sometimes you have to cut out pieces that you really want to share. So maybe there was a really great life experience, but it wasn't relevant to this audience. So the work comes in really tailoring it to your audience and constantly thinking about your keynote in the sense of, is this piece relevant? Does this relate to their overall goals? Can I tie it in or make a parallel to something that this audience in particular would relate to? So don't make it hard to follow. Instead, do edit yourself. And there's another really great quote I'm going to include right after this about just the power of mastery and how that involves so much editing. Okay, so there's one more tip that I want to get to on my list of do's and don'ts when you have an important keynote to give. But before I do that, I would love to ask you to think about the last time you saw someone speak from a stage. It could be a big stage or a little stage, any other opportunity where you were in the audience and you noticed something that they did that was really great or that they did that you really did not like. Felt strongly either way. I would love to hear about it in the comments, so please let me know. Let's make this a little bit of a dialogue, okay? That's the best case use of social media platforms like this. All right, so tip number 3 on my list of do's and don'ts for when you have a great keynote or when you want to make your keynote a knockout, okay? This is my 3rd tip. It has to involve my witnessing a speaker actually do this, okay? And this is what happened at the conference. One of the speakers, a very successful person, had used over and over again what I guess you could categorize as self-deprecating humor. Now, I'm not really sure how much humor was actually involved or the intention was there, but it was self-deprecating. And the reason I'm saying don't do it is because it makes your audience feel a little awkward. So in this particular scenario, The speaker has had lots of success. They're on a major stage. They've been clearly paid, I would guess thousands of dollars to be there and give this nearly 1 hour long talk. And the person kept saying things like, well, I don't know if I really deserved it, or maybe someone could have done it better than me. This career in television that this person had. So like I said, as an audience member, I think you take the risk, if you're doing something like that, of making your audience feel really weird or awkward. And instead, there's so many other things you can do to, break it up, to maybe elicit some laughter or get an audience reaction. And you can do those things like use photographs, show it on the screen. Usually we have technology that can help us do that. Or maybe ask a great question and have the audience raise their hand or not, stand up or not. You're involving them. So you're breaking up your talk, you're putting the focus somewhere else for a second. You can also, of course, one of my favorite tools is to incorporate video. Now make sure that your video is short enough to keep their attention span, I would say 3 minutes or less when you're giving this talk. And you could use multiple clips perhaps, or maybe you ask them to comment on it afterwards. There are ways to break it up so that you're not just talking on and on and on. The main thing about all 3 tips is that you are at your most relevant, relatable, and likable self in that opportunity you have to influence people when speaking from the stage with a keynote. Last but certainly not least, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more information on how to use story in your business so that you can be your most successful self. Until then, happy storytelling.